All right, everybody, here we are talking about budget cycles. And there is a lot of material we could cover with this, but I just want to jump right into some of the meat of how we're talking about budget cycles, because really that's what we want to get at, right? It's how do we know how money is set aside? How do we know how we create budgets? And so what does that look like? And so in the textbook that we read, Barr and McClellan, they talk a little bit about this from this perspective. They talk about how the person with budget management responsibilities in the unit is likely to be supervising expenditures under the current operating budget, and then they're closing or getting ready to close previous year's budgets while still making projections for the next year. So I want you to think about that. That is 3 years of budgets that they have to be totally connected to. And so there's a lot of issues with this. A few of the key ones. Number one is just the size of the institution, the characteristics of the institution. The bigger the institution, the more budgets there are to close, the harder it becomes, the more committees there are, the more people that are involved. And that's really the second big issue is the number of people that have to inform the process. For smaller institutions, you might not have as much support staff, but you also won't have as many budgetary restrictions and things that you have to do. And then also we have to think about time, right? That we may not have control over when revenue or resources are sent to us. And so, even when in light of all those challenges, we do want to think about kind of what that cycle will look like, right? And I'm not going to cover all of these because that's in the textbook, but you basically can think about it in terms of some categories, right? So, at the beginning, we have kind of this kind of pre-phase where we're setting guidelines, we're sharing information, we're analyzing data, which is something they talk about in the Goldstein chapter, and we're creating our processes and reviewing past performance, and then also receiving internal proposals, right? So this whole process that we do at the very beginning is all preparatory to setting the budget. Then we have kind of this kind of middle time where we're reviewing proposals, we're submitting their budgets, we're getting institutional review, and that's kind of the decision-making time frame, right? Where we're going to look at all the resources that we have, we're going to look at all the requests we have and make some decisions. And then as the budget's going, we're monitoring performance and making adjustments. A lot of times people will ask for money and then they can't end up spending it. And then afterwards, we close out the budget. Now, of course, something that's not in here is the hard conversations that are had when somebody overspends or somebody underspends. And so these are all very real challenges in the budget cycle process. And like I mentioned in the Goldstein chapter, they actually do kind of give a different perspective on this. And so that's what I'm showing here. But you'll notice that it's similar with some different words. The Goldstein chapter talks about the importance of the role of the board in approving this. It talks about analysis of data, not necessarily sharing information, but all of those things are really important in order to be able to create and develop the right budget. And so that's kind of at the heart of what we think about with the budget cycle. I hope that as you think about the budget cycle yourself, you're able to take some time and consider what part of the cycle do I engage in my current job? Are there parts that I want to be more engaged in? And then don't hesitate to kind of take this and talk to your supervisor, talk to those individuals that you work with to see if there's a way that you can be a little bit more engaged.